about these issues that would incentivize tourism and industry in Louisiana to help us make informed decisions? In your opinion, what would you change?
Well, I do think we have transparency in the process. It's difficult sometimes to understand the process because it gets very convoluted, and you have to go to the legislature, you have to go to the bond commission, you have to jump through a lot of hoops on bond issues and on some tax credit legislation. But we do have transparency, and people can see where that money is being invested. It's a very tough balance as to whether or not you're giving too much incentive and what are you getting on the back end. And it's important to make certain that there's built-in accountability, which is being developed through the legislative auditor and other programs that determine whether or not this makes sense. Year after year, the legislature is studying tax credits, tax rebates, tax incentives to see what does it yield in real dollars, what does it yield in real jobs. In the case of the movie industry credit, which of course I authored it and I strongly support it and I see its benefits, there is very significant data that shows that the loss of revenue to the state is more than made up with the jobs that have been created and the revenues that flow to the state from sales taxes and income taxes and other contributions to local governments, not to mention just the hiring of people to work in the industry, that it makes it very cost beneficial. That's why the governor and the legislature supported not only the extension of those credits, but the increase in credits to digital media production, to live media performances. I was in New Orleans 2 weeks ago for the opening of the the announcement of the opening of the Addams Family Broadway production in New Orleans. That is the first one ever done in this state, an original production that was done entirely in New Orleans, hiring New Orleans people, not all the actors of course, but the performance of it, based upon the incentives. But equally importantly, the producer told that crowd, we love the incentives, it makes it cost effective, but he said, we love this place. We love the ambiance of New Orleans, we love the people, we love the personality. This is a place we love to be, and we're glad you make it easy for us.
I absolutely agree that there's not enough transparency. We need to have, a lot of times when we give taxpayers dollars for something, we play with the numbers to make it look like it was profitable for everyone. I don't think anybody in this room has a comfort level, at least I don't, that a lot of times we're getting the most bang for our buck. A lot of times the same people that are promoting those tax breaks or those incentives are the people that are telling you that it's working, it's good. I think we need an independent look at it to make sure all figures are on the table so people have 100% transparency and feel comfortable that it is beneficial. I support the tax credits for the movie industry, but we've got to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck.
I think that's precisely the reason why the legislature has been very active, particularly in recent years, in making certain that the legislative auditor is involved in reviewing these credits and reviewing the number of jobs and reviewing the benefits to the state, and also why the legislative committees, the money committees, are taking such a keen interest in whether or not this is working and whether or not it's beneficial for the state. And I think you're going to see, as difficult budget times continue, some ratcheting back of some of these tax credits and exemptions that are not proven to be worthy. And that needs to happen. And it'll happen, hopefully, after a very careful and thoughtful review by the policymakers who sit in the legislature and get to make those decisions.
It's all of the funding that comes from taxpayers needs to be looked at, not just the movie industry, which you just spoke about. Any business incentives, anything we do that is your tax dollars needs to be looked at, 100% transparency, and it needs an independent look, not the people that are funding it having a look at it. It's got to be independent.
Thank you. This question also is not on the list, but as we develop it here, I think I like it. We sent it to you in the survey. Everybody knows that in Louisiana, every politician is a heartbeat away from being in the newspaper for the wrong reason and ethical considerations, etc. Okay, so the question is, what is the most challenging ethical dilemma that you have faced in your public office life, and how did you deal with it? I'm sorry, excuse me. Mr. McGuire.
You two first. Doesn't matter.
I don't remember it,
Mr. Darden, I believe you are.
I'll go first. I got to think about it a while because I tried to conduct myself in a way that I didn't ever put myself in a position where I was ethically challenged. I think my answer would have to be centered around having to make decisions based upon what I felt like was the best thing to do or what I felt like my constituents wanted me to do. And I'm responding now in my time as a legislator. I've been in positions as a legislator and as a statewide elected official. And I would think that's the way I would answer your question. And in trying to balance how best to do my job, the people sent me there to make the decisions because they entrusted me to make decisions that I thought were best. Should I always do that, or should I recognize that the will of the people has to prevail? And in wrestling with that in situations where it presented itself, I usually said, I want to do what the constituents feel is most important to do. But you don't get the luxury of polling people on every issue. You don't have a yellow button. You have a red button and a green button when you're making those decisions.
We're working on that.
There you go. Always doing the right thing. Spending taxpayers' dollars like it was your own, and 100% transparency. By January 1, every dollar going back 10 years and going forward in Plaquemine and this parish, every dollar spent of tax dollars will be online for the public to see. Sometimes you have to embarrass people into doing the right thing. And I believe 100% in that if it's tax dollars, we should know where it's going, every penny of it.
If you elect the right people, you don't have to embarrass them into doing the right thing. They know what the right thing is.
I agree.
Thank you. Everybody is on a limited budget. Do you know what the lieutenant governor's budget is? And is it too high or too low? I think, as I looked on the website, there are approximately 14 staff members, I think, on the website. I could be wrong, but that's what I counted. Is this too many or too few? What can we do to do more with less?
Well, that's why I'm in favor of expanding the role of Lieutenant Governor's office, of asking the governor to task me with doing other jobs because of the size of the staff and the ability to travel around the state promoting tourism and working with the tourism people, but also to bring businesses here. And that's why I said if it was just going to do tourism, I'd be for having it under the governor's office and doing away and saving the tax dollars. But if you're going to do more, to have another person elected by the whole state to travel around promoting business, the coastal restoration, making sure we get our fair share of the BP money in the end of the day, and also doing tourism, yes, you can do more with less.
Well, let me answer your question because Billy did it, and he may not know. And the answer is the budget approximates almost $100 million. And it's spread out between the 5 responsibilities that we have in the Lieutenant Governor's office, which range from tourism to museums to state parks, which is a very expensive component of the budget, the arts, and the state library. Tourism, you might be surprised to hear, is funded exclusively with a dedicated 3/100ths of a penny of sales tax. There's no general fund dollars that go into tourism in Louisiana. We're not taking away from health care or education. The only money that's earmarked for tourism is 3/100ths of a penny of sales tax that the legislature imposed a number of years ago and said this is what we're going to do for tourism. Unfortunately, the legislature has now begun encroaching on that money and redirecting some of those resources we would otherwise have to promote the state. For every dollar we spend on tourism, we're going to bring $17 back to the people. That's a heck of an investment, a heck of a return on investment. So I've been very vocal about talking about the need to let us spend what we're statutorily entitled to spend. Billy said earlier that my predecessor cut the positions in my budget. That's not right. The predecessor reduced 74 positions. We're now down another 67. When Mitch Landry was governor, there were about 24 or 25 people working for the lieutenant governor. Got ratcheted down to, I think, 11 when Scott Angel was governor. It's down to 9 now under me. But as I told you earlier, I've collapsed the operation of the lieutenant governor with the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, so the people who are lieutenant governor employees on our table of organization are actively involved in the work of the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
We need to look at those positions and what exactly they do. Because of the budget cuts, we've seen hours cut back in museums. We've seen parks and things not getting the revenues they need. So, I will take a look. I don't have access, as my opponent does, to all those records. But I will look at it and go over with a fine-tooth comb and make sure we're spending every dollar wisely.
Well, you absolutely have access. They're all public records. I mean, everything I'm referring to is a public document, so they're perfectly available. We have not reduced hours in our museum system. The Secretary of State's office had to do that because of their budget cuts. Our museums are open. Our parks are open. We're struggling every day to make sure we keep those parks open. You own them. They're magnificent investments in Louisiana, and we want to make certain that people can enjoy them, particularly because many people don't have the wherewithal now to take vacations, and they're wanting to stay home and experience Louisiana. So we're committed to make that happen, and as I've said before, we're committed to doing more with less and handling the budget the legislature gives us in a very responsible way.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up most of the questions that I have. What I'd like to do now is to give each of you a minute to wrap up your position overall, and then we're going to go to questions from the audience. Mr. Bell.
Well, we've had an opportunity to discuss the issues tonight that relate to the office of Lieutenant Governor, which I'm glad to finally have an opportunity to do, to talk about what this position is all about. And I hope you gained a better understanding about the responsibilities of this office and the qualifications that the person who's chosen to lead this department has or does not have. This is not only the second highest position in state government and the position that's a heartbeat away from being governor, it's the position that is going to represent your state to Wall Street, to people who are making tourism decisions, to editors of national magazines, to national television networks about Louisiana. This is going to be their look into who we are as a people. And it's a very important role that I take very seriously, and I'm grateful every day that I have the opportunity to do it, because we're passionate people, and I love to be able to represent the passion we have for Louisiana.
We have great people in this state to promote this state. We don't need to go outside the state and bring in outsiders to promote our state. I'll make sure we use the people and resources here to promote our state in tourism. But as I said before, I will not only do tourism. We've got to create jobs across this state. We've got to cut spending, and we need a lieutenant governor that is going to get involved on every front, whether it's in Baton Rouge, lobbying in Washington, or fighting for our coast. We need someone that's going to get up every day, 24/7, and give it 110%. And I'm that guy.
Thank you. All right, so next we're going to go to questions that have come from the audience. And each of you will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and there won't be a rebuttal afterwards, so each of you just has 2 minutes. And the first question is, could the duties of the lieutenant governor be better fulfilled by an unelected person or a different role in government? Is it necessary?
It absolutely could if it's just tourism. And that's why it's so important to have a spokesman for the state, whether it's an oil spill, a hurricane, fighting in Washington to get 80% of the funds to rebuild our coast, or creating jobs across the state. You've got to have, we don't have room for elected positions that aren't going to give 110%, and that's the difference. The work ethics, hard working, and if we're not going to do more than just tourism, I would be for having that job appointed. And you've got to have that good working relationship with all the elected officials, the governor, the congressmen, the senators around this state to work as a team in Baton Rouge.
I think it's extremely important to have an independently elected lieutenant governor, an elected position. This person is responsible to the people for everything that is done to run one of the largest departments in state government. All the other major agencies in state government are under the executive branch. This one stands alone, and the legislature decided a number of years ago to place the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism under the lieutenant governor, and to make the lieutenant governor the commissioner, as I said, by law, of that department. That is the person who's ultimately responsible. I think it's very important to have that person responsive to the people of Louisiana and to run independently that office and be accountable for all things good that happen in that office.
Thank you. The next question is, in the Louisiana State Parks system, what are we doing that is right, and what should we change, and is that part of the lieutenant governor's job?
Well, it's absolutely part of the job. The Office of State Parks is one of the 5 areas of the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. And that office has been run very well in the past. It's got a lot of resources. It's got a lot of people. It's the most personnel-intense aspect of what takes place in the department, because there's so many parks and there's so much that has to be done to service what is the equivalent of many hotels in many of these areas, not to mention beautiful lakes and fishing opportunities, recreational opportunities. And the Office of State Parks has been run very well, and I've found that to be the case in the 10 months I've been there.